It's been 1 year since I joined the server called Modern Beta, and I wanted to do a sort of world tour of everything that I did on the server in the past year. The reason I'm not considering this as a server tour is because there are so many amazing builds and towns on the server that I won't be showcasing off. Instead, I'm solely focusing on the things that I've done and going over my history on the server. I'll provide links in the description of the video to certain things that I talk about, whether it's a video or a link to the wiki. So if you're curious about anything, you could check the description to see if there's anything there that interests you. On December 2nd, I first joined the server for approximately 5 minutes. I needed to record a sound effect for one of my videos, and instead of hopping on a single player world, I saw the Modern Beta server listed on the Betacraft launcher, and I clicked on it since I saw that it had a few more players than I usually expected to see from a server on there. I was on the server until there was a server restart, and after that I hopped off because it was 2 AM and I needed to sleep. That's pretty much it for my first time logging onto the server. I literally only broke a single stone block with my fist and it was gone after that. 3 weeks later, I logged back onto the server after a YouTuber named Travis made a video on it. What was funny is at some point I asked in chat, why am I a member and not a newbie? For context, you used to get the member rank a week after you first joined. Some dementia must have kicked in because I totally forgot I joined the server a few weeks prior. It was the last day of 2024 when I joined back onto the server, and the first thing I did was head to the very alive town called Highland. Navigating there was a nightmare, and after arriving there, the town itself was a bit of a nightmare. I left a sign on the visitor board and a minute later, accidentally blew up some signs due to a creeper walking up to me. The town was absolutely riddled with builds, and I knew that without the best building abilities, I would have to do something else to stand out. That's when I had the idea to build something practical that would help the town instead. So I built a 3-layer community tree farm. I built some paths around, a rail leading to the farm, a room for my wolves with a giant bone underground, and not really related to my tree farm area at all, I also pushed a diamond ore to the height limit right above the town's entrance. Someone ended up mining it thinking it was somehow a free diamond that I was giving away to anyone who built up 60 meters to it. But anyways, by the time I did all of this, the town was already dead. Next time Travis streamed on the server, he already didn't want anything to do with the chaotic mess that was Highland, and the town was almost a ghost town at this point. About a week later, I saw someone advertise a stream in the chat, and without having much to do, I clicked on it. The streamer was a pig guy named Sqoid who was wearing some sick freaking shades and was helping dig a pretty big hole with his viewers. I guess seeing people digging a hole in Minecraft activated my neurons, since I immediately headed over with my stash of TNT to help. This was one of my very first interactions with people on the server, and little did I know that this would be the start of some amazing friendships with multiple people from the stream. Pretty much all of my time on the server in January was spent working on digging this hole, and if you're curious as to why we were digging this hole, it's because this was part of a project to recreate the giant castle from the Minecraft trailer. And a lot of mining was required because the server had a low height limit compared to what the builders who worked on the trailer had for the castle. During this month, I showed up to a live recording on Modern Beta Mondays for the first time, which was a weekly update series that showcased builds and news on the server. I also made a 10-question quiz inside of the giant hole, which I made Sqoid do, and I ended up recording a video for it. On January 29th, the whole project, at least the digging part of it, was done, and we took this cute little screenshot. One last important thing that was done at the end of January is that Sqoid managed to claim an island next to where he lived, and this ended up being the birth of my main home on the server. Here, I dug out a massive underground staircase, because apparently digging 100,000 stone blocks in that whole project wasn't enough for me. This ended up being my minigame area that I called Andy's Games. In this area, I made 2 minigames. Hole Sweeper, which was just Minesweeper, and my second quiz, which had 20 questions this time, that I called Super Duper Fun Quiz. Oh, and this ceiling in the Hole Sweeper room took me so long to do because of how much wool I needed, so please appreciate it. You probably have no idea why it's designed the way it is. Unless you play Minesweeper, then maybe you understand it a bit. Outside of my minigame hole, I made a path and a cool fountain to flex on the haters. And this is where I spent most of my time on the server for the next couple of months. I didn't even have a base. I kinda still don't have an official base. The closest thing to a base I had was my ugly storage room that I felt safe enough to AFK in frequently. I basically lived underground because I was working on a big project for a while. The big project being my Squid Game event. But that's already going too far in the future, so let me take a step back. I remember needing a break from all the mining I was doing, so I made a skyscraper for Horrorland, the name of the town I was living in. I still didn't have the spark to build an actual design from scratch, so instead I used the skyscraper I designed all the way back in 2020. Some lore about this skyscraper is that I remember turning the skyscraper into a mini hide-and-seek map on my creative world, and it was supposed to be turned into a video, but it was recorded at such low quality that it ended up being scrapped. I'm realizing now that I'm pretty sure this is what influenced my friend and I to start working on the abandoned mall hide-and-seek map that we made public, and I made a video on it. The skyscraper on the server wasn't quite that. I made it because the area already had 2 skyscrapers in it, and I wanted to add a third one to spice it up. I later turned it into a cactus farm, so at least it got turned into something practical. It was now February, and I competed in my very first event around this time. A Hunger Games event on a recreation of the famous map Breeze Island. This event was super fun, and I ended up making a video on it. I donated some gold blocks for the pirate ship, which is quite ironic since the pirate ship ended up being the whole reason why I won a round and got to compete in the finale, getting 4th place. I also helped make a ton of glass for the glass wall around the map, but that was for the second Hunger Games event, which I'll talk about later. This event was super funny because I remember falling for a trap I couldn't get out of and I didn't realize it. At some point, someone let me out of the trap and I killed them, but I ended up going back into it because I missed the second set of pistons the first time, and I assumed it would have had a way out. It didn't, by the way. I spent my first round trapped in there and eventually got /killed, but the second round is the one I ended up winning. Those 2 rounds were quite the contrast. Oh, and also, the finale had 4 people competing in it, and I got 4th place. So instead of being on a podium for the screenshot, I ended up being on a dirt block. Why am I levitating? It was February 18th, and one of my stupid idiot wolves fell for the classic etho trap. What a freaking bozo. There was a lot happening in February. There was a Valentine's themed build competition for that month, and this ended up being the first build competition that I was involved in. I built a giant monitor playing Dave Foxo Dating Sim, an inside joke on the server that ended up being perfect to build for the theme. This is also the area where I kept my first major wolf collection. Something I'm surprised I'm mentioning this late into the video is that I collect quite a few wolves on the server. I always keep bones on me just so I can add to my collection. Before this build, I kept my wolves in a hole hidden underneath my flex fountain. However, something insanely tragic happened when I went to move my wolves to the new area. Yeah, I think at least 100 of them died due to entity gramming. But back to the build. I ended up getting 2nd place, losing to 2 Tomators in love, and to this day the build is still there covering the entire horizon. I took part in a Team Splef event with a player named Tiberzan this month at the town of Olympia. Olympia is an insanely sick town made by the main event manager of the server, Bulix, who has hosted a lot of different events in this town, like TNT Run, Water Drop, and even Dog Soccer. This is the very first Bulix event that I took part in, and let's just say it did not go well for us at all. Basically, in this version of Splef, there was this TNT mechanic that would destroy most of the snow platform, and each time we would fall from it instead of falling from the players spleefing us. I feel like my brain wasn't quite working during this event, and that made me forget completely about this mechanic. I'll just say that in the future, events hosted by Bulix have gone way better for me. In the middle of March, I worked on a giant squid farm for Horrorland. There was already an existing squid farm in the area that didn't really work at all, so we cleared it up and I ended up going insane after crafting and placing all of the signs needed for the new design. At some point, this farm needs to be redone because the ink sac rates fell off so hard with this design. But for a while, this farm was super effective, and it helped that I needed a lot of black wool for a future project. In the same month that I worked on the squid farm, there was a new build competition theme. This one being wizards and witches. I remember seeing way more wizard themed builds than witch themed ones, so I focused on building the least popular prompt. What I ended up building was a witch carrying the world and in the process of boiling it in a cauldron. I've done 4 build competitions in total, and this is probably my least committed and simplest build, but I think it turned out quite nice. Nice enough for me to apparently take 50 screenshots of the damn thing. I didn't get in the top 5, and I'm Not sure whether or not I even got top 10 because at the time of recording, the build competition posts are all hidden. I got 13th. I think I even found a spawner underneath where I was building, and I tried to incorporate it somehow, but couldn't find a good way to do so. I needed a little break from building in Oidland, so I went to the skyscraper capital of the server, Silver City, to build a skyscraper. I ended up going with a similar color palette as with my first skyscraper, that color palette being 99% white. This was mainly because hardly any of the skyscrapers at the time were made out of snow blocks, and I had a lot of them to use. To this day, the skyscraper kinda doesn't have an interior, like, at all. I apologize for that. Off topic, but is that Harmony Cobell from the hit TV show Severance? The end of March is when I started doing these weekly raffles at the shop Oidmart. This shop is a shared shop between members of Oidland, and it's located at the Cardinal Marketplace, which is a section of shops in the nether next to the big railway that practically connects the entire server together. This shop was my main way of getting diamonds for months, as I would sell a bunch of ink sacks, cobblestone, and bones. Since I was actively working on my minigame area, I thought it would be fitting to make a fun, interactive game at Oidmart, so I came up with the raffle. For half a year I did these raffles, where basically I would look through a random stat in my statistics menu and have people try to guess what my stat is at. I've done stats like how many clay blocks I've mined, my distance in a minecart, the number of mobs I've killed, stuff like that. People would pay a diamond to make a guess, and the closest person would win a diamond block. I did these weekly, then bi-weekly, and now I have stopped entirely, but it was fun to get people actively involved in something for a while. I believe I ended up doing 20 of these raffles in total. There was a super fun event for April Fools. For 2 weeks, the Aether Portal was real and allowed access to the Sky Dimension. For the short period of time that this was open, people built a crap ton of things, especially since there was a build competition themed around building in the sky. We don't have access to it anymore, so the only way to view the builds in this area is through the public blue map of the server. I didn't compete in the build competition this time. Instead, I made a pixel art of my dog using the same image that I used for my profile picture on YouTube. I even spent a few hours for some reason pushing a single diamond ore hundreds of blocks just so it could be part of the pixel art. This was a super fun limited time event, so I'm really hoping for another fun one for 2026's April Fools. Back at Oidland, there was a brand new build, a Sumo Arena that was based off of the Wii Sports Resort Swordplay Arena. The owner of the server, Carl Troyd, was testing out a new type of zone on the server, that being a sumo zone. People are able to request PvP zones to be created through a Discord ticket system, but for this build, we wanted a zone where people could hit each other, but not take damage. As this was the first zone of its kind on the server, the owner was testing it out one night by 1v1ing players and seeing who could beat him. I needed to mention this because during that night of 1v1ing Carl, I ended up winning against him at least 5 times in a row without ever losing. But then he hosted an official event the next day. In this event, players could bet up to a stack of diamonds and then 1v1 Carl to see who takes them home. Knowing that I never lost to Carl in practice, I of course bet a stack of diamonds assuming I would win, but here's how that ended up going.
Come on, Carl.
Carl's getting no tempo.
Come on! No! Oh, the combo! The combo! The combo! No way! No way!
I'm a crippling gambler and I would do it again every day of the week. All the way back in late January, I remember people were talking about Squid Game in chat and talking about how it would work on the server as an event. And I was instantly captivated by the idea because of how fire it sounded. This played a big role in me playing the server so much because for the first month on the server, I had no idea what I even wanted to make. I was digging a hole for fuck's sake. But now I had a long-term project in mind that would be super satisfying to pull off. It was April when I was beginning to design the rounds for my Squid Game event and building them on the server. Before this, I was spending most of my time just clearing out the area for the rounds, and without enchantments nor any easy access to a lot of TNT, it took a long time. But at least I had enough TNT to trap the server owner when he was checking out the area. Later that week, round 1 of Squid Game was made. Just for clarification, Sqoid Game is what I named this event to play off of the word Oid, since Oidland was the town that this event was being made in. This is definitely the most impressive round out of all of them, mainly because I needed to make sure round 1 was a super flashy build to open the event with. I'm going to be jumping around talking about this event and then talking about something else entirely, since it took so long for me to make the event and I was actively focusing on multiple things at once on the server. There was an Easter egg hunt event hosted in the middle of April, where a bunch of chests were scattered around this recreation of Fallen Kingdom with egg map art inside to represent the eggs. During the egg hunt, I was finding a decent amount of eggs, but nothing that would result in me winning, especially since the eggs were all being found so quickly. However, I remember looting a chest and seeing an egg still inside. The reason why this was so weird was because each chest had a block of colored wool on top of them to stop people from looting the chest before the event began. So you would have to mine the wool with shears before you could get the egg inside. Apparently, someone thought the colored wool on top of the chest were the actual eggs and not the map art inside. This was the only reason that I ended up winning that egg hunt, because as soon as I saw that one chest with the map art still inside, I figured that the same person who did that probably also forgot to take the eggs in other nearby chests. This turned out to be true, and my egg count practically doubled just from looting those chests. Afterwards, when we were taking a group screenshot, I ended up getting pushed off the platform by someone right after the screenshot was taken and died. I remember looking at 2 screenshots that someone posted on Discord and thinking, damn, I'm not even in the screenshot because I died. Until I looked a little closer and realized, that's me in the process of falling. And I think that ended up being infinitely better than just being in the screenshot normally. On April 26th, I streamed for the first time. The stream was kinda similar to this video where I would show off my history on the server, but that was at the time where I hardly did anything yet except work on Squid Game, which I was keeping private. So I spent half of the stream doing that, and the rest PvPing on the Sumo Arena and playing Hypixel party games. That's pretty much it with talking about that, but I thought it was important to mention since streaming for the first time was a pretty big deal for me. Back at Squid Game. It was the first week of May when I recreated Spawn for the 3rd round of Squid Game, and when I recreated certain builds of Oidland for the 4th round. The next week is when I was making a round similar to the glass bridge game in the show, and I made the walls out of black wool. The walls ended up burning down 4 times from hidden lava, which was incredibly annoying, and I believe I have 3 of the 4 instances saved as screenshots. All of those rounds have been replaced since then, so that's why I can only show them through screenshots. The second week of May is when popular beta YouTuber Mongster logged onto the server. This was pretty big for the server owner, as he was one of the main reasons for beginning the server in the first place. Mongster was nice enough to make a comment on one of my beta videos, which made my day when I saw it. He wasn't on the server for too long, but it was wholesome to show him around Spawn and show him around the recording location for the modern beta update videos. Later that same week was when another Hunger Games event was being hosted on the same map, except this time it was a teamed event. I was teamed with Tiberzan again to see if we could do a bit better in this one than we did in the Splef event, but let's just say things did not go well. We did pretty well in the first round, but we ended up dying to a diamond sword, which we didn't think was supposed to be possible to craft since even iron swords were super OP in the first event. The next 2 rounds we died pretty quickly since the loot pool didn't have much food and we couldn't survive fights more than 2 seconds. There was a final round where the teams that won the previous 3 rounds would compete against each other, so we were out of the event at this point. After this, we figured we were cursed as teammates, so we stuck with teaming with other people in future events. The end of May is when I completed the very last round of Squid Game. A giant floating cube of water that the last remaining players would have to fight each other in. I can thankfully show off this round since it has remained unchanged. If you're curious how the floating water was done, basically I had to create glitched invisible stair blocks that players are able to pass through but not water. For some reason, right after I finished all of the rounds of Squid Game, I decided to spend my time turning an entire island into dirt with the help of Tiberzan for a passive mob farm. This area remained untouched for a few months until I finally came back and made it into an actual farm. This design is the same one I used in my beta Minecraft series, but the mob AI does seem a tad bit different on the server, where sometimes mobs can get through to places they aren't supposed to be, but most of the time it works well. But apparently not right now, because when I went to record this footage, mobs were not spawning. June 14th was a big day for the server, as 2 events were being hosted directly next to each other. A brand new Splef event, and the Squid Game event. There was a few hours in between both events, so I figured there was plenty of time for me to actually be able to compete in the Splef. Knowing how Splef went for me last time, I didn't expect to get too far, and if I got out early, I would be able to run to the Squid Game event and prepare. I didn't have any strategies in mind before the event started, but I did come up with a few diabolical tactics during some of my matches. For example, in my first match, I had a strategy that involved looking around aimlessly to act like I had no idea what I was doing. It ended up working out way better than I expected, and as soon as I got close enough to my opponent, I was instantly able to break the blocks underneath them. I used a quite meta sign strat in the semifinal that involved me writing out text on a sign that would bless me to win. Writing Splef1 made me win the first round. Splef2 actually caused me to lose the second round, but in the third round, I baited everyone into reading this sign, which allowed me to win that round. I ended up competing in the finale with a player named Tired Guy and I lost, meaning I got second place overall. Since I'm already over here and talking about it, I'll talk about the second Splef event that was hosted here since it happened only 2 months later. I got out fairly early, making it to the top half of players, but I did get to use another diabolical tactic against one of my opponents. One where I would pretend I dropped my only shovel onto the ground and then pull out a second one out of nowhere. This strategy especially worked because an admin tried trolling me by picking up the dropped shovel, and that only made it more convincing. Back to the first Splef event, the event took way longer than expected, so after taking the group screenshot at the end, everyone had to rush over to the Squid Game event. Since most of the rounds have been replaced, if you want to see each of the rounds in detail and how the event went, check out the video on my channel. It was super fun to host it after months of working on it. I even hosted a big raffle during the event where people could win 10 diamond blocks if they were the closest to guess how many stone blocks I've mined on the server. If you were curious how much mining I really did for the event, just know that the answer was around 500,000. Afterwards, I made a graveyard to remember all those players that competed and lost. For the designs of the graves, I thought it would be cool to have those who made it further in the event have a better looking tombstone. So besides the tombstones hinting at how far each person made it, it also tells you the specific way each person died. A few weeks passed and another event was being hosted, this time by Bulix. This event was called Punch and Pierce, which was hosted before as a solo event, but this time around it was teamed. Knowing how team events have gone for me in the past, I was pretty worried about how this one would go, but I ended up teaming with Sqoid. Punch and Pierce is a PvP event that mixes both sword duels and bow duels. Sqoid and I ended up winning the event together, meaning this was my first event win on the server. There's not too much else to talk about, we were just punching and shooting arrows at other players. Later that same day, I established the area for my theme park. I didn't build anything besides a rough border around the area. The only thing I did at first was mine and search for caves, which resulted in me finding like 5 or 6 monster spawners in a single hour using an insane cave system. Okay, never mind, it was 8. I can even show the names of the screenshots as it tells you the time I took them. Most of the spawners were in like 3 different caves that I found when mining for diamonds, but some of them I mined to after hearing mobs in the walls. The most insane thing that happened was me mining my way up to the surface and literally thinking to myself, what if I found a spawner while mining to the surface? Then seconds later, I heard spiders through the wall and found the last spawner. It looked so bad for me. There's an area in my theme park that has my other big group of wolves. I don't know if there are more wolves here or at Oidland, but soon enough, there will be more wolves here since I spend most of my time around this area now. The first build I made in the theme park, besides the park entrance, was this statue of one of the server admins, Zadek, fishing something in the water. I expanded an existing hill to fit the statue inside of it, and I think it ended up being a cool build to see as soon as you enter the park. Something important to point out is the thing being fished out of the water. Yeah, so when I found this spawner and saw how close it was to the surface, I knew immediately that I had to incorporate it somehow into a build. The bridge that goes into the park will be coming from an island that I still need to make, which is where the nether portal will be moved to. And the park sign design was straight up robbed from my beta world since the theme park on here would go by the same name, Andventure. Around this time is when a new build competition theme was announced, Summer. This was perfect for me since a theme park fits the summer theme quite well. For the next 2 weeks, I was grinding. For one, I made a boardwalk with a roller coaster, Ferris wheel, and funhouse. It was another thing that I stole from my beta world. That's something I should also talk about, Ever since I figured out some long-term project ideas that I wanted to make on the server, I kind of felt completely demotivated from continuing my beta Minecraft world. The fact that the server plays like beta, but takes place on modern with the quality of life features and mods that come with it is just so perfect for me. Whenever I'm creating something from scratch, I need to build it on creative first, or else I will never end up finishing it. And I'll be honest, it wasn't very fun to build something on creative and then make dozens of screenshots from different angles just to go on my single player world and painfully look through the screenshots at the correct angles to progress through a build. Ever since using Lightmatica, I actually have been enjoying building more than I ever did in my life playing this game. It's still hard for me to come up with designs even on creative mode, but I've pretty much only been a PvPer for the longest time, so it's nice to finally be passionate about the building aspect of the game. Back on freaking topic, not only did I copy and paste my Bedrock from my beta world, but I also made an 18-hole mini golf course. This is something I would have never designed for my beta world because I would find it way too annoying to copy the build from screenshots. However, this build didn't go without its own unique struggles. For context, when picking an area for this theme park, I knew I wanted a snow biome in the mix so that I would have access to ice, but obviously I didn't want too much snow as it's generally annoying. I started making the course, placing water in the spots that it needed to freeze in, and after a while of it not freezing, I was getting increasingly worried. Then I found out about a pretty brutal server bug that would make it way more difficult to make the course than I thought. So apparently in the code, the biome taiga was being used for these snowy areas with the spruce trees, because in beta Minecraft, snow would fall in regular taiga biomes. However, this is not the case in modern Minecraft. It doesn't snow in regular taigas, so to fix this, they had to reclassify these areas as snowy taigas. This fix came a few months later, so I had to rely on piston pushing the ice for every single block of the course. This took me an entire weekend to do, at least 15 hours. But I had a pretty good system where I was able to use a small patch of actual snow biome that I found to push ice from. I actually realized that the reason that ice was generating here is because it was technically a tiny snowy plains biome. With this small section of snowy plains biome, I was pushing 15 blocks of ice at a time. And it helped that I built some of the course over an ice lake, because for those parts of the course, I was able to push the ice directly upwards into the correct spots. I'm saying all of this as if it didn't take me more than 15 hours to do this, but it did. I still need to make an actual entrance and have signs explaining the rules and everything, but I'll make that once I'm ready to open the park to the public and need to do the finishing touches. I submitted the build for the build competition and it ended up placing 3rd place, tied with 2 other builds. After this, I worked on some walls around the park which required a lot of wool farming. I also made a little pixel art of my dog on the floor of the park entrance, kinda similar to the one that I built in the sky dimension, but obviously a lot smaller. Interrupting the theme park talk, Belix was hosting a new event, MiniWolf, a game of mini golf where instead of throwing an item across ice, you would be reeling in a wolf with a fishing rod. Something funny to mention is, while I was making my mini golf course, Belix saw that I was doing this and messaged me if it was for an event, because he was worried there would be 2 golf related events back to back to each other. I guess the Wolves were calling to me since I ended up winning the event with a player named Kylerbro, as our scores were tied. If you want the exact scores for every player that competed, there's actually a wiki article about the event. It's kind of crazy that both of us won, because how this event worked is that 2 players would be able to play each hole at a time, and both of us were assigned to go first on every single hole. We were basically the lab rats that had to work out how to do each hole. That's the reason why only us 2 were assigned first place, even though 2 other people got the same score as us. Our advantage for going first was that if anyone got the same score as us, we would instantly win over them. For winning, we were given an apple and a golden apple, which are both super rare. Golden apples aren't craftable and have a super low chance of appearing in a dungeon chest, so that instantly makes them very valuable on the server. But regular apples weren't obtainable yet in beta. Sometimes the admins hand them out as a prize for winning an event, and that's literally the only way you can get them, so that's why they're way more rare than golden apples. Kylerbro and I agreed to have our apples kept in a sort of shrine in Oidland, so a few weeks later I made a wolf statue holding an apple in its mouth, which is where the apples currently are. The wolves during the MiniWolf event were actually being paid off by me to make sure that I won, but for the next event, I didn't do that because I was confident I could win legitimately. The next event on the server was another wolf related one, this one being dog soccer. And boy was I wrong. This was a duos team event, basically soccer, but instead of kicking a ball, you were pushing a wolf. I was teamed with a player named Polygloid this time, and just know that we got destroyed. This was actually fine for me since I was busy the next day, and if we qualified the first day, we would have to compete the following day. Back at the theme park, I finished construction of a tower I call Andvenger Tower. You know, cause like the Avengers, but with and mixed in because of my name. See, it even has a logo on the side like the actual Avengers Tower. This tower was originally going to be used as one big storage area for all of my stuff, but I thought a way better idea would be to turn this tower into a hotel. This is something that still needs touching up on, so I'll also work on this before opening the park. This is also around the time where I finished torching up the entire park so that it is fully safe from monsters. Thank God for the mod Lighty, cause without it, I would never be sure if the area was fully covered. Yet another mod that makes building stuff so much more convenient. At this point in the timeline, we are in September, and I had an alt account AFK walking to the Farlands. One of the craziest things about this server is that a group of people were dedicated enough to mine a tunnel in the nether more than 1,000,000 blocks long that reaches the Farlands. This tunnel makes it so that anyone walking down it could reach the Farlands in 4 real-life days, and a lot of people were doing it. Not only is the Farlands such a stunning place to live in and around, but there are also endless water caves that make finding diamonds infinitely easier, as long as you are fine placing and breaking thousands of doors and swimming at the slowest pace ever. I spent a few weeks farming diamonds and gold, and here are my statistics to prove it. The reason I needed so much is because it was time for me to work on the second Squid Game event, and I wanted the prize to be even bigger than it was the first time. Now I can actually showcase the rounds. Although it took me until the next month to finish every single round, I was mainly spending that time mining in the Farlands and also working on another project that I will get into very soon. So to go over all the changes, the first round remained mostly the same, except I added hidden dispensers that I rigged to shoot across the entire room when I pushed this button. The second room was completely changed. Originally, it was a sandstone room with paintings on the ceiling, but this time there was a giant sandstone block in the middle that players would have to mine and try to find regular sand blocks inside of. The third round was the same round as in the first Squid Game, where players would have to try to find hidden stone buttons in order to unlock these iron doors, but this time, the room in the middle was a recreation of the server's nether hub instead of spawn. There were more buttons and a lot more well-hidden spots compared to the first time, so I think this round ended up playing a lot better. The fourth round was just a simple water drop room, and the walls were made out of black wool. Thank God those didn't burn down this time around. The fifth round was an obstacle course that 2 people would have to cross while everyone else was trying to shoot them. This was a team round where players elected a team captain to play as the lab rat, so players would have to go for the other team's captain in order to survive. The sixth round was a massive lava room with minecart tracks. The remaining players would all get into a minecart and would have to try to get out of it just in time so that their minecart gets super close to the edge, but not far enough to reach the powered rail. It's exactly like that one Mario Party minigame, Sled to the Edge. And the final round remained exactly the same. Apologies for giving hardly any context if you haven't seen the video, but just know that the first event may or may not have ended before this round could even be played. I have some heartbreaking news. While going mining for more diamonds in the Farlands, I dug through a wall that had a lava pool and fell inside. I had full diamond armor on and I was close to getting out, but it wasn't enough to save me. I had 2 stacks of diamond blocks on me, which was pretty brutal. But since I was close to getting out of the lava, and because I had just recently set my spawn point pretty close by, I tried going for it. I had a little room set up with my bed, but I forgot to supply some extra materials for me to use to get out just in case I did die. And I was a bit worried because my bed was very close to where I died, and I wasn't quite sure if the items were in a loaded chunk. For some reason, I broke my bed assuming that I would have a second spawn point at my Farlands base. I don't know if it was me being tired because it was late or if I was just stupid. Probably both, But I ended up drowning trying to make it out of the water cave, and when I clicked respawn, I was back at the server spawn. I was absolutely devastated, and I pretty much spent the whole week AFK walking back to where I was. But I did end up going back to where I died about a week later, and one stack of diamond blocks was still there since the chunks were never loaded. Finally, back at my theme park, I came up with a new project idea as soon as a new build competition theme was announced. This theme being Halloween. I didn't talk about this earlier, but 2 months before this, I made a giant creeper hedge maze in my park, and it was originally going to be for a mob theme section of the park. But as soon as the Halloween theme was announced, I figured I could finish cleaning up the maze and use it as part of a horror section since it would fit the vibe pretty well. This project was possibly the most locked in I had ever been on the server because I had a pretty big ambition. I wanted to build a haunted house with the roller coaster inside and have the roller coaster continue on for a solid few minutes with the whole storyline included. I do have a POV video of the whole roller coaster if you want to check that out, but basically, people riding this ride will spend the first minute in this claustrophobic haunted house with a few redstone spooks that may cause a heart attack. After the house section of the ride, people are tricked into thinking the ride is over until they fall down a very deep hole and land in a therapist's office. The ride has a full story, going through multiple rooms before heading outside for a nice view of the park, and then goes down another hole that is in the middle of the creeper maze. Riders will go through a few more rooms, back outside one more time, and eventually will make their way back to the beginning of the ride through a hole in the ceiling of the first room. The completed ride ended up being about 4 minutes long. Around this section of the park, I added a lot of detail to emphasize the horror feel of the area and to fill up the empty spaces more. I turned all of the grass around the house into dirt, utilized a small section of grass and added some nature to it, added some pumpkins, added giant spooky trees, finished making paths around the area, and I also added a graveyard. Earlier, I talked about a graveyard that I made after the Squid Game event to remember all of the people who competed. Well, this was a recreation of that, but with a lot more room to work with, so I was able to make it look way nicer. I also needed a new location if I wanted to make more graveyards for any future Squid Game events. This whole area was submitted for the build competition, as well as the video I recorded of the roller coaster. There are videos put out on the official Modern Beta channel for all of the build competitions, but at the time of me recording this one is not out yet, and I can't check the exact votes for who won, but the last time I checked, I had the most votes. It turns out I lost by 1 vote and got second. That's pretty much it for the Horrorland section of the park, besides this entrance that I made with these little gargoyles. But I will try to come up with at least one more attraction to put over here at some point in the future. After grinding out the Halloween build, I made a storage room in my theme park. This is especially a big deal for me because this is like my first actual nice storage area on the server. I spent months in my theme park with dozens of chests just lying on the floor right outside of the nether portal, but even before this, my only storage area in Sqoid was and still is literally a room with stone and dirt walls. In this new storage area, I even made sure to separate my Farlands resources from my normal resources so that they aren't contaminated in any way. The most recent event that I participated in was another Bulix event, this time TNT Run. He hosted a TNT Run a year ago, so this one was the second official one on the server. The event was getting interrupted a bit by server lag, so the first 20 minutes were spent trying to figure out how many players would be able to walk on the TNT arena at once so that the server lag didn't make it completely unplayable. The first round was very nerve-wracking. I was in the arena with 3 other people, and in order to qualify into the next round, I would have to be in the top 2. And it was a one and done round, so if I fell here, I would be out of the event immediately, and the server lag made this round a bit of a coin toss. I ended up falling 3rd out of the 4 players, so I qualified past the first round. The next few rounds were a lot better because instead of going against 3 other people, we would be 1v1ing another player on a much smaller field. During these rounds, I played it pretty aggressively and tried to get rid of a lot of the arena quickly since I was confident enough to do the single jumps. These rounds were a best of 3, and although the aggressive strategy made me lose a round, I was able to win enough to get into the finale. The finale was a best of 5 or a best of 7. I'm not too sure, but it was a 1v1 back on the giant arena, and I was going against a player named Random Gamer. I lost the first round, won the second round, won the third round, lost the fourth round, and won the fifth round. I think the finale was a best of 5, unless the scores were 1 away from each other, and then it would be a best of 7 or win by 2, whichever happened first. I'm not quite confident that's how it worked because the decision to switch up the rules was a bit spontaneous, but I won the 6th round, which made the score 4-2, and that made me the winner of the event. I was given another golden apple for winning the event, which I've kept on my very neat and professional wall of accomplishments. In the future, I'll make something in my theme park to commemorate the event in some way. I don't think people are aware of this, but I realized that winning this event means I won 3 Bulix events in a row, since I won with Sqoid and Punch and Pierce, tied with Kyler Bro and MiniWolf, and got my first solo win in this TNT run. I do honestly fear for my life now. The most recent thing I finished making is this rainbow tunnel that I made in the nether that leads to my theme park. It goes out 1,000 blocks, so gathering all of the wool for this was a real grind, but I love how it turned out. It also comes with this really cool optical illusion effect that you really see if you free camp through here. Currently, the only thing in the nether is the tunnel, but in the future, I'll make a nice looking station near the nether portal. And finally, I'm here at the Squid Game event area one last time. November 22nd is when I hosted the second Squid Game event, which was only a week after the Bulix TNT Run event. I didn't end up recording the event this time around, but if you are curious, there will be a link in the description of a player named Just Kerp streaming the event. The event was a funny, chaotic disaster. It was a bit more scuffed this time around, but I think it ended up being even more intense than the first one. The prize that I handed out to the winner was 88 diamond blocks, plus a chest full of a bunch of rare resources like iron and gold blocks, pumpkins, and clay. I did another raffle for this event. One where players would have to guess how many wolves I've killed on the server, and the closest person would win 20 diamond blocks. The answer was a measly 435, and nobody reacted in any way at all to that. After the event was over, I ended up doing a drop party in the main bedroom where I threw around 40 diamond blocks to everyone in the hopes to avoid making enemies. And that wraps up everything that I've done on the server in the past year. At least most of it. I really appreciate this community for welcoming me and becoming friends with me. I honestly really needed it, and I'm glad that I found a fun and safe place to enjoy the wonders of this goofy block game and the somewhat niche appeal of beta Minecraft. I do want to apologize for not making many videos recently. I have been spending a lot of time making projects on the server, as well as gaming with a group of friends that I met from the server, and I've enjoyed every second of it. This server has kinda entirely replaced my beta Minecraft series because of how it perfectly appeals to me and my interests. I love beta Minecraft, but I love modern as well. It's probably not fair to call this server a mix between modern and beta since it's definitely more beta than modern, but having the modern quality of life features has honestly made it hard to go back to regular beta 1.7.3. If you love beta Minecraft, or if you just seem interested in hopping on the server, give it a try. You might find a new interest or respark your enjoyment of the game. You might make long-lasting friendships and create memories that you will cherish forever. I certainly have. So all I want to say is, thank you to everyone. That's about it. See ya.